Today's episode is brought to you by Malwarebytes Premium Security. Protect your computers and devices from cyber attacks 24/7 with Malwarebytes Premium Security. And go to malwarebytes.com/lock and code for an exclusive offer. That's malwarebytes.com/lock and code.
This notion that people may have that, well, why would they want my data? Why would they want me? I'm not an attractive enough target. I'm not big enough. I'm not important enough. That is just not true. That is not true, and we really need to shift that thinking.
This is Lock and Code, a Malwarebytes podcast. I'm your host, David Reese. Our main story today is about small business and a little thing that one group is calling a cyber tax that impacts everyone. There is a chance that you don't know what a small business goes through during a cyber attack, and the reason I say that is because years ago, I did not know what a small business went through during a cyber attack. I thought there was a robust system in place to protect businesses of any size, large or small, from the same things that hit everyday individuals, like phishing attempts, account takeovers, extortion scams, and AI-powered threats. I mean, I would see ads for cyber insurance, which is insurance that protects businesses from cyber attacks. And I figured every business has like an IT person, right? Surely they can help the business investigate, shut down, and recover from any online attack. And I've reported on the U.S. Department of Justice intervening in major ransomware attacks, so I thought any significant enough crisis would receive the necessary help. Obviously, we wouldn't be doing this episode if my prior assumptions were correct. They are largely incorrect. And yet, even I was surprised both at how incorrect I was, but also at how much in common everyday individuals have with the small businesses they likely support. Last year, the Identity Theft Resource Center asked some 600 small business owners about their most recent 12 months, and they found that cyber attacks are common, they are debilitating, they can put owners entirely out of business, and they are evolving because of artificial intelligence. 81% of businesses surveyed said they suffered a data breach, a security breach, or both within the past year. More than 50% of those lost more than $250,000 because of said incidents. And while 47% of victims had to pull from their cash reserves to stay in business, 38% raised prices for consumers. Those price increases are what the Identity Theft Resource Center has called the, quote, cyber tax, end quote, which is the literal price that individuals pay for having their data stolen by cybercriminals. It is an unfortunate reality that ties the cybersecurity posture of small businesses directly with that of their customers, and it reveals how connected we all are. Today, to help us understand cybercrime's impact on small businesses, the new threats being deployed because of AI, and what is necessary to protect business owners and their consumers, we're speaking with Eva Velasquez, CEO of the Identity Theft Resource Center. Eva, welcome to the show.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
We are excited to have you here, and we have quite a bit to talk about. So let's just dig in. I wanted to start the episode here by bridging the gap between small businesses and their owners, right, and everyday consumers and individuals like myself, right? Our show frequently discusses the latter. You know, there's isolation, there's bankruptcy, there's self-doubt. All of that occurs when, someone like me is hit with a cyber attack. But what are the impacts of cybercrime on small businesses and their owners?
Well, it's not that different from the impacts on individuals, because at the end of the day, businesses are comprised of people, right? It's all human beings running the show. So they're going to have those same human reactions. But then you have to add the layer of responsibility for other people, responsibility for their livelihood. So there's even more stress And dare I say, even more on the line for that small business owner, because they have all of the impacts that individuals have, and then they have that extra layer.
Mhm.
And I mean, you cited the data from our most recent report. This is not an isolated problem. The vast majority of small businesses are dealing with cyber attacks, data breaches, and keeping data safe. And I really want to make this caveat here. I want to make it very clear. Look, we measure this information. We want to see what the landscape is like, but we are not judging small businesses and wagging our finger at them. Great businesses with great protocols in place can still have a vulnerability exploited, because this is what the cyber bad guys are doing all day long. They only have to be right once, whereas small business owners have to be right 100% of the time.
We were also talking about, right, what are the impacts here? Because when I think of a small business, I'm thinking the stakes are things that don't exist for me as an individual, right? Things like lost customers, things like maybe even employees leaving the company.
Right.
What else is happening to small businesses as a consequence of a cyber attack?
Well, all of the things like the isolation, the self-doubt, the loss of trust in the systems that they think are there to protect them but have demonstrably failed, that's something they have in common with consumers. But the small business owner has that added weight of responsibility. And I think the biggest thing that we hear directly from folks in this situation is the concern for their employees' livelihoods and the concern for their consumers and their network. One of the best examples I could give, and this would be in the case of a micro small solopreneur who's using social media as their main form of customer retention and recruitment. It's how they advertise, and they have that account taken over. Well, now that someone, not them, is in control of that account and starts posting things like fake investment schemes and things of that nature, the concern for that small business owner was not just the reputational hit to them, to their business, but it was, oh my gosh, what are they going to do to these people in my network? They're going to exploit them. And me and my business being used as the tool, it is such a deeply personal feeling, and they feel a responsibility for it. And it's true, they do have a responsibility as the business owner, but I can't say enough about how the emotional impact, how that weight is that additional burden on them that's different from an individual consumer. Both are very, very high. I'm not comparing the two or saying one is better or worse. They're very, very high and very, very difficult, but it is an added layer that consumers who aren't small business owners don't have to deal with.
I think it's also important to talk about the reality here that, look, businesses are going to lose money, and they have to think about recovery to either get that money back or get back on track to be able to be a revenue generating business once again. And also, what do they do in the interim, right? Let's say I'm attacked. Let's say my account is taken over. Yeah, it's a pain and it sucks, and I don't wish it on anyone. But I also don't have to think, okay, how am I making money tomorrow, right? My job still exists. I'm still me. I can still earn that salary. So what is happening here in terms of, is it as simple as the next day they are in a sort of limbo in terms of, again, generating their livelihood?
Well, it really depends on the scope and the scale of the attack. Again, the difference between consumer and individual, you're talking about, well, I still have my job. Business owners thinking, well, I have to make payroll. So it's not just my income, it's the income of all the people that are working, for me and with me. So they have that extra layer. It can be 1 day of operations. It can be months, just depending on the nature of the attack. What does the business not have access to? They're always going to take a hit, but the scope and the scale are going to be very, very different. And then long term, if it does go on for a period of time, you can have employee turnover. The longer and the bigger the reputational hit is going to be. And, recovery looks different. It's more than just we've identified the problem and we've fixed it and patched it. That's just the very beginning.
We will talk about recovery really soon, but the last thing I wanted to hit on was that this cyber tax idea, right? I kind of mentioned at the intro there that sometimes folks are going to either pull from their cash reserves or they're going to do some other kind of, they might take out a loan entirely, right? Creating a new, it's not a cash reserve, it's the opposite, it's a debt.
Right.
But there's also this idea here that they're raising prices. Can you just tell me more about, again, this cyber tax, quote unquote?
Well, historically, we have always asked businesses if this created a financial gap. We ask consumers this too, but they have different resources. How did you bridge that gap? And it is things like you said, pulling from reserves, taking out a line of credit. Sometimes they have insurance proceeds. They can file a claim with their cyber insurance carrier. This was the first year that I think it was near 40% said we actually had to raise prices. We had to pass this cost on to our customers. And that's why we said, oh my gosh, we're now really seeing the long-term downstream effects of cyber attacks. So it's a cyber tax in action, and it's the passing of that cost onto, frankly, all of us. This may be the first year we're reporting it. It's not going to be the last. This is probably going to be something ongoing, especially as historically cyber insurance was really hard for them to do the risk modeling and to figure out what are the premiums going to be, what can we cover, what can we not cover. And I think there has been some pullback in the availability of those policies in what they cover. And so this is conjecture on my part, but I think it's adding to it. I don't have the data to support it. I think that companies may have been relying on some of those other avenues, thinking they would be available to them. But then when something happened, they learned it's not available to me, and they had no choice. It was stay open and raise prices or not operate.
So let's talk about, as we were saying, recovery here. I kind of just want to understand if you could take me through like a typical small business response, to a data breach or a security breach. What's happening? Even is there like a timeline, like minute one? What goes through a response?
Well, first they have to know that there's a problem. And depending on the nature of the attack, if it's a ransomware attack, they're going to know immediately, because the intent behind it, of course, is I'm going to hold your data hostage unless you pay me for that. So they know right away. But other times, it's exploiting a vulnerability behind the scenes so that they can do more long-term damage. And that isn't always caught right away. When we look at data breach notifications in particular, in the time frame in which they come out, sometimes it can be months. And that is not necessarily because a business was trying not to be transparent. It's because they either didn't know, they had to complete the forensic audit. So that first step, like minute one, that is going to look so different from incident to incident. It's hard to give just like a typical example. The next step that I hope happens is they pull out their incident response plan, right? That I know, okay, if this happens, I know I have a plan. I know who I need to call. I know what my next steps are. I think, unfortunately, that doesn't happen as often as we would like it to, because people just are unprepared. And I'm not saying that again, I'm not wagging my finger at people, at business owners. I'm just saying that is just the nature of it. They're like, oh gosh, I'm not sure what to do. So operational downtime, how long this lasts, it can be vastly different. Maybe it's a few hours or a few days, but it can be weeks or months. And sometimes it can be never, that it can put them out of business. That's how devastating these attacks can be. And then as far as, what does recovery look like? I think I said it before. It's not just, okay, we've identified the root cause and we have our data back or the lights are back on. Now you've got to make sure, do I have all my backups restored? Can I verify that? How much of customer trust has been eroded, and what do I have to do to make them whole? And how do I have to communicate that to them? In a lot of ways, identifying the incident and the root cause and fixing that is really just the first step in a long process.
So let's now talk about what's actually hitting small businesses. When we talk about things like data breaches, security incidents, what are those things?
Gosh, there's so many. I mean, the laundry list is long. A lot of phishing emails, business compromise emails. Criminals are absolutely using technical skills to exploit vulnerabilities within your systems. That is absolutely still happening. But they're also exploiting our humanity because there's just so many phishing emails. Oh my gosh. And AI has scaled this incredibly, made them so hard to suss out the legitimate from the illegitimate.
Mhm.
Then business owners are, we're dealing with deep fakes. And I think a lot of people think deep fakes are only a consumer issue. They're not. They're absolutely not. Because if you've got a small business, maybe you've got 3 employees, and a bad guy decides to use deep fake to impersonate the CEO
Yeah.
and tell the VP, hey, wire this money or pay this bill or whatever, that's an exploit unique to small businesses. Just a short couple of years ago, we said, that's not really scalable and that would be too expensive. It's not, there's no ROI for the bad guy. Well,
Yeah.
now it costs nothing and you can automate it. You don't even need a person behind that. You can automate it and use AI and just have this running in the background. So all of those tools have become so cheap and so easy to automate. It's just created a laundry list of vulnerabilities for small businesses and for consumers too. And it's making these, what are actually mass attacks, they feel highly personal. So they feel personalized to your business and frankly to you. And I think that small business owners are a little bit divided in loving the opportunities that AI creates for them to create efficiencies, level the playing field, and do those types of things. When it's also creating so many vulnerabilities, I kind of think it's a wash, but depending on AI evangelist versus, an AI apocalyptic person, they're going, oh no, it's terrible. I think it's somewhere in the middle, but that's all happening right now. And it's like I said, one more weakness that business owners have to be cognizant of. I think the last thing I'll say on this is about supply chain attacks, where the bad guys are going to someone further down in the supply chain and they want to exploit weaknesses in those smaller companies to get to a bigger fish that's real, it's growing, it's happening, and it is making the smaller businesses, the smaller fish in the pond, a more attractive target. So this notion that people may have that, well, why would they want my data? Why would they want me? I'm not an attractive enough target. I'm not big enough. I'm not important enough. That is just not true. That is not true. And we really need to shift that thinking.
You were saying that a few years ago on the deepfakes issue, I was thinking the same thing, right? This is not scalable. This costs a lot of money. The models out there do require some technical know-how. And now, like you said, this stuff is available very, very rapidly, very, very cheap. I just wanted to do a little bit of forecasting because we know this is already where we're at, within the past 2 to 3 years. I also just wanted to ask, what do you think is going to happen 3 years from now with the development of AI? Is it just, hey, these attacks, as you said, these mass attacks are feeling more personal? Is it that times 10? Is it something we can even kind of look into the future about? I just wanted to get your thoughts because we see the same thing and it's kind of like, it's a lot to handle.
Oh my gosh, this is going to be fun. I'm going to look in my crystal ball here. And I will admit to you that just 3 years ago, I had the same feeling. I thought deepfakes, AI, this is really going to be more about spreading misinformation and disinformation, misusing highly recognizable individuals or businesses. And that's how they were going to scale it. I really thought that, and I'm on record saying it. But the reality intervened and we started getting more and more calls from people. And as the technology's gotten cheaper, we are seeing it used at scale to exploit individuals. And it does feel very targeted. Now, I have looked at where are we going to be even next year. And I go back and forth. I'm of two minds. And the first one is we will, in very short order, get to a place of absolute bedlam because we can't trust anything.
Yeah.
I think of things because of my background in the prosecutor's office. I conducted economic crimes, white collar crime, fraud investigations in the first part of my career before I got into victim services. I think about things just like the court system and the use of evidence.
Yeah.
Everything that we rely on to be de facto proof is going to go out the window. And I don't know if that's going to cause things to slow down and we're just going to have to get used to a slower pace. I don't know if it's going to create this real zero trust environment for all of us, or if, being the human beings that we are not going to adapt and we are going to have our economy reduced to having three primary economic drivers: gambling, porn, and fraud. I don't know. And that may be a little too edgy to actually say on this podcast.
No, I feel the same way. Oh my gosh. I'll even raise you here. It's not even raising. I just think they're absolutely interrelated. I have definitely thought that the primary economic driver in the future is going to be the loneliness epidemic. I think everything is targeting, hey, these people are lonely, so let's make a chatbot that makes them feel like they're heard. Let's make a chatbot that can make them feel like they have a partner or a friend. Let's suck them into a hole of gambling. Let's isolate them through scams.
Investing.
Investing.
Let's make money really quick. Let's play to people's philanthropic nature and desire to help and create a whole bunch of fake charities that you can support. Oh yeah, these things, boy, we got really dystopian really fast.
That's the point of the show, actually, believe it or not. That's actually what the show is. I think it's so interesting also that you brought up here this prediction years ago about what deepfakes would do, because I wanted to just revisit it because we felt the same way. Oh my gosh. I remember my colleagues saying, this isn't going to be a problem because we also thought the way it would be used is through disinformation. And the way you achieve disinformation is by putting it on a big platform, like on social media, or my goodness, some way you find a way to hack a television station and you put it on TV. And we thought, well, when you multiply the number of eyeballs on that piece of disinformation, someone within that group, enough people will recognize it as disinformation. People will say, hey, no, this isn't real. This is fake. And there'll be this kind of grassroots pushback, community pushback. And we thought, yeah, that's it. The only way you can get something done is by putting it in a huge audience. And within a huge audience, that audience will be able to tell that, no, this is make-believe. Boy, were we wrong.
Yes, I was a little bit less certain than a lot of my colleagues, but I was still very much in that camp with, it's not scalable. It's not scalable. I don't know how much it's going to impact regular old people. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's hitting regular old people so hard. This is so bad. I do have a bright side to this argument, however, which I feel compelled I have to share. So we can get out of the Mad Max Thunderdome mindset, because I do think that there is a way out, but it is going to require a fundamental societal mindset shift. But I think we can do it.
Okay, yeah, let's hear it.
For years, and you know this, and I'm sure some of your listeners know this, the fight between security and friction it's a battle royale. We can't add more friction. Our customers will go away. They're not wrong.
Yeah.
Data supports that. So we keep having to walk this line between security and adding friction. Now, businesses listen to their customers. They listen to their users. If we adopt the mindset of, no, I actually want friction. If there isn't enough friction, I'm going to disengage because I know that I can't trust this, that it's not keeping me safe. And I'm really looking at a lot of this through the lens of scams and identity misuse. We want a world where only you can use your identity, where only you can be you. And that is going to require us embracing friction, and not just a little bit, a lot more of it. But if we do that, that will help set us up for the pause that comes with engaging when you have to prove that you are who you say you are. It's going to take, I don't know, 9 seconds longer. It's not a huge amount of time. But if we start to make that shift, that mental shift, I also think it will help to set up that mental block, because right now a lot of this is with the bad guys creating sense of urgency, a sense of you must act right now, us getting very used to one click and go. We can step back from that just a little bit and say, hey, we can insert a pause, not just into our processes, absolutely necessary, but into, again, our mindset. That will help. It will be don't trust, but verify, instead of either, oh, I'm going to trust everything and let the cards fall where they may, which is kind of where we're at right now, or I trust nothing and then we're back at the Thunderdome.
I love this idea of introducing friction as like a goal, just because I'm a big believer in friction as a positive thing. I think particularly right now, as we're dealing with AI tools that can increasingly do the work for us.
I've got my first parishioner. You can join my church of the Church of Friction. You will be my first member.
I think friction leads to learning. I think doing the work is the learning. What's so funny is we can accept this as such a basic truth for something like athleticism, right? You can read all the theory you want in the world about, let's say, tennis, but you're not going to be a pro tennis player unless you're on that court and you're doing it every single day. And the same is true for all our other fields of study, of writing, of coding, of anything, honestly, truly anything. Friction is what creates the learning in my mind. And so I'm a pretty big fan. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes, let's be friction evangelists together. It's a practice. I've been doing this forever. And having that mindset of step back, don't react. I don't have to engage with everything. And we're being deluged. I know. Mm-hmm. And I don't have to understand everything.
Yeah.
No one person. This space has become so complicated. There is no one person that can understand absolutely everything. But it's okay to rely on others. Now you just have to know, who can I rely on? And yes, this is going to sound like a shameless plug for the ITRC, but it is. It's why we exist in this space. And again, we're a charity organization. We're doing all of this for free for the public. I liken it a little bit to, here's a good analogy for you. Let's talk about AAA or roadside assistance.
Yeah.
I cannot, beyond a shadow of a doubt, just through my own behavior, make sure that I never run out of gas, have car trouble, or get a flat tire, right?
Yeah.
I also know that I cannot be enough of an expert. Okay, I can be enough of an expert to not run out of gas. I can go to a gas pump. But I can't change my own tire, and I can't fix every possible problem that could go wrong with my car. I don't have that level of expertise, and I'm never going to get there. But I know who I can trust to call when I need that help. I have them in my back pocket. I think we all need that. And it exists currently. I mean, there is the Federal Trade Commission. There is the National Cybersecurity Alliance. There's us, the ITRC. It exists out there. We just have to make sure people know so that when they need it, they can get the assistance they need immediately, not after the fact. Of course, we provide recovery services, but being able to say, hey, there's not enough friction here. This seems too good to be true. I don't know exactly what that means. I'm going to phone a friend. And then being able to phone that friend before you make a decision, that's the place that we have to get to. And that's the mindset shift of, it's okay that this isn't immediately and happening in 3 seconds. It can take an hour or even a day. Oh my gosh, something might take 24 whole hours. How can we ever go back? That's the Stone Age. But I think we have to have a little more balance in this uber fast world that we've gotten so accustomed to.
Yeah. We've been talking so much about a mindset shift, right? And I wanted to instead talk about whether we know what small businesses are doing to protect themselves from like individual steps, right? We hear all the time about cybersecurity best practices. And so I wanted to know, we're talking about all these threats. We're talking about AI-powered deepfakes. We're talking about this entire world that is hitting small businesses. How are small businesses staying safe?
Again, my answer is going to be, it really depends on the business.
Mhm.
And there isn't a one size fits all. So are you a highly technical business? Then you're going to have to take different steps to make sure that you're keeping not only your business, your intellectual property safe, but also your customer data. And then there's the question of, what kind of customer data do you have? Do you have sensitive data? Well, that's going to take an entirely different plan than, say, someone who's like, I don't even collect credit card information. I have, first names only. So I can't give a one size fits all question to that. What I can say is that we're not even there yet, in my opinion, of how can they stay safe. We're still at the beginning of, this is important and needs to be a part of your business plan and your business operations. So let's make sure it's a priority and that you've had the conversation, that you put the plan in action, and it's part of what you think about when you're running your business. We still aren't there yet. So let's start with that.
I wanted to close on a bit of a two-parter here, and they're both related to the same thing, right? Which is, how do we fix these problems? And the first question I want to ask here is about the consumer, right? Because I think some folks might hear things about, say, the cyber attacks at home, and they're going to think that they should blame the small business for that. They're going to get upset for a small business not solving their own problems. And I wanted to ask, is that helpful, right? Is that the helpful framing that a person like I should have towards the corner store or my dentist, also a small business? How should consumers feel about small business security?
Oh, you're going to hate this answer because I'm going to tell you again, there's no one size fits all because there isn't. And far be it from me to tell people how they should feel, depending on those circumstances. But I will say you don't necessarily have to be upset, because obviously if there is negligence and it's determined that, well, you knew or reasonably should have known that this was going on, and you made a business decision not to put financial resources there because it cut into your profits. I do think businesses, small, medium, large, global, should be held accountable. However, that is not always the case. I said before, you can have the most robust plans and processes in place and still have a vulnerability exploited, especially if it's some kind of social engineering, because we're all human. So I don't want to say de facto consumers should be upset, but I do think they should be demanding. And this is where that friction conversation and that acceptance of friction comes in again. And also having conversations with the businesses that you do business with. You brought up your dentist's office.
Yeah.
That would be one of those things where if you go in and you see all of your medical data out there in the open, in paper files, not limited access, and you're like, that has all of my insurance information and my date of birth and all of this, how are you protecting that? I think that's a great conversation to have with a business and be like, you know what? I think I have to go somewhere else. It's an opportunity for that small business to go, okay, maybe I do need to invest some time and resources here. And it's an opportunity for you to make a decision about what's more important to you.
I wanted to also close here on revisiting this idea of friction. We've spoken so much about, hey, this is a mindset that could help, but let's try and get specific, if at all possible. And it doesn't have to be, I want every small business to start using multi-factor authentication, right? It doesn't have to be something like that.
Instead, well, but I do.
Right. Right. So it could be that. But what I'm asking here is, if there was one thing you could tell to the small business owners who are listening, what is the one thing you would say that would prepare them or jostle them into activity, motivate them? It could be anything. I'm leaving it open there. What's the one thing they should know?
I think they should know where their vulnerabilities are. Can you take 30 minutes after listening to this podcast to look at, hey, what data do I collect? Where does it sit? And what could a bad guy do with it? And what would that mean to my reputation? It's almost like, thinking through the worst case scenario And then you can decide, okay, I do actually think that putting likelihood aside, because we can't predict that, as I said, small businesses are targets.
Mm-hmm.
What is that worst case scenario? Wow, I don't want that to happen. What are the steps? So it's almost like an audit, just doing an internal audit of where your weaknesses could be and what that would feel like if that were to happen to you. I think removing it from the nebulous maybe piece of the world and maybe that could happen. No, I'm going to actually pretend that this did happen. What does that feel like? And what does that mean to me and my family and my customers? That might spurn people into more action. I would also tell small businesses, hey, maybe as an individual business, you feel like the little guy, but as a collective group, you're huge. So, I do think that there's room for conversation at the national and the state level to talk about what are the tools. You said, well, we don't want to tell everybody use MFA, but I do want everybody to use MFA. What does that look like if there's some support that says, hey, we need to make this tool available to small businesses and we need to make it either more affordable, more feasible, whatever that is. Same thing with passkeys. How can we create sort of ecosystem-wide security practices beyond just what the recommendations are? We have lots of great recommendations. Where it falls down is people go, I can't put that into practice for whatever XYZ reason. Yeah. Well, let's address some of those reasons. Can we have some conversations at the national level about the most meaningful way to bridge those gaps? And then let's make it happen, because there are a lot of organizations engaging in advocacy like that. So collectively, this is a big group of people, and I do think they could have some sway.
I have actually one last question. I lied. And it is actually super simple. It's about the work that you folks do, right? Because I think there's probably going to be some people who listen to this who don't know what Identity Theft Resource Center does. And you've spoken so much about, where you as an organization do come in, right? You're not disaster response, but you can be part of recovery. So let's just hear, what do you folks do and what can you help on?
It's a lot, and we've been around for a long time. So we were founded in 1999, and we provide direct one-on-one support, primarily to individuals, but also to small businesses. Again, as I said before, a lot of times it's really entangled because small business owners often use their own personal credentials to open and manage their business. So we have a contact center. You can call our toll-free number at 888-400-5530. You can go to our website, idtheftcenter.org, and get information. We have scam alerts, how-tos. I mean, gosh, it's such a wealth of information. We also do a lot of research in the space because we not only use it to inform our own services so that we can continue to provide those for free, but we want to put it out to the field so that other people can benefit from it. All in all, we believe that identity misuse, scams, and fraud are just a huge scourge on the world, frankly, but we provide services for folks in the United States or U.S. folks living abroad. So if you have a United States identity credential, we can help you to recover and reclaim it if it's being misused. If you're dealing with a scams issue or a fraud issue, it's about recovery plans. We also help with risk minimization after the fact. And we've been doing it again since 1999. We want to make sure that people don't feel like, I can't pay for that service. I don't have the money to protect my identity, to create good cyber hygiene habits for myself. We want to provide that all for free. And we do. And people can get in touch with us, follow us on social media, sign up for our newsletter, visit the website. There's any way you want to get in touch with us, you can. And we can be that support mechanism when you have questions.
Eva, I just wanted to thank you again for coming on today's show, for telling us all about this, for telling us all about the work that you folks do, and for engaging in going down a dystopian rabbit hole and coming right back out. Very, very fun. So again, Eva, thank you so much.
It really was a pleasure, and I hope folks stay safe out there.
To our listeners, we'll talk to you again in 2 weeks. Until then, stay tuned and stay safe. And remember, you can read all our cybersecurity coverage on Malwarebytes Labs at malwarebytes.com/blog. Finally, our intro music is by Kevin MacLeod from incompetech.com, and our outro music is by Woa from unminus.com. Today's show has been edited by our podcast consultant, Eric Johnson, at lightningpod.fm. Thank you, folks.